Chapter 60. Pointing to Yang Qin, Zhu Chintao said the word, "you," twice, and it seemed that he still couldn't think of how to ask. This was the first time that Zhu Chintao had such a feeling when facing an outer sect disciple. Yang Chen's spiritual power was very poor, and Zhu Chintao did not expect him, a disciple in the first layer of the qi refining stage, to be strong. However, just talking about the means of controlling the fire, even if it was Zhu Chintao, he couldn't do it when he was in the first layer of the qi refining stage. Although he could barely do it with his cultivation base in the Jidan stage, he couldn't do it as easily as Yang Chen. It must be known that Yang Chen had almost stretched the two small flames that he could control to the extreme. In the eyes of a master like Zhu Chintao, the thinnest flame was almost as thin as silk. Even if it was Zhu Chintao, it was very difficult to do it, not to mention that there was no slightest mistake in the process of alchemy. As an alchemy grandmaster, after Zhu Chintao saw the complete alchemy process, he had understood most of the principles of this qi-seeking pill. It was nothing more than sealing the spiral-shaped flame in the pill. The moment the pill was eaten, the spiral-shaped aura would erupt, giving people a feeling of being strengthened by an external force. This would allow those new cultivators to find this trace of feeling and quickly enter the state. This qi-seeking pill, the most important thing was that the two spiral-shaped flames could not have the slightest intersection. The thinner the distance, the closer the medicinal effect was, the better the effect. Once the two flames accidentally intersect, it would destroy the spiral-shaped aura, and this furnace of pills would be considered wasted. What shocked Zhu Chintao was that even if he understood all the principles and saw the complete process, if he really wanted to refine such a furnace of qi-seeking pill himself, he couldn't guarantee that he would succeed every time. However, Yang Chen, in the face of the pressure of a Jidan stage master, still had to divide his attention to controlling the fire for alchemy, but he did it so easily. This point, even Zhu Chintao was ashamed. After thinking about this, Zhu Chintao suddenly felt a little ashamed. He was an alchemy master of the Jidan stage. He didn't know how many times more experienced than Yang Chen, but in the face of such a furnace of ordinary medicinal materials, using the worst alchemy furnace to refine medicinal pills, he was actually not as good as a disciple of the first layer of the qi refining stage. How could he bear this? Where did you learn this method of controlling the fire? Finally, Zhu Chintao stabilized his mind, found the focus, and then asked this question. He wanted to know what kind of person could point out Yang Qin, a freak who could make him feel ashamed of his inferiority in controlling the fire. When I was in the Xiu Manor, the Shangguan of the Shangguan Yang, Yang Chen had long thought of an excuse. In the face of Zhu Chintao's inquiry, he did not panic at all. He spoke with confidence and assurance. He said that I have a fire spirit root. In the future, whether it is cultivation or fighting, alchemy or refining, it is inseparable from the fire. He said that I must be able to control. I listened to the words of the Shangguan Yang. After I entered the first layer of the qi refining stage, I especially practiced controlling the fire for more than half a year. After you completed your qi circulation, you practiced controlling the fire for more than half a year? Zhu Chintao was stunned. He had heard of Yang Chen's experience. After this disciple joined the Chunyang Palace's Xiu Manor, in just a year and a half, he had reached the standard of the outer sect disciple of the first layer of the qi refining stage. This speed could already be considered as a person with excellent comprehension. He didn't expect that he actually practiced controlling the fire for more than half a year. In other words, Yang Chen reached the first layer of the qi refining stage in less than a year. The four servants, including Xinde, were also stunned, but this also eliminated one of the doubts in their hearts. When Yang Chen was in seclusion in the Xiu Manor, it was always the four servants who served him. They had long noticed that when Yang Chen was in seclusion, there was a fluctuation of spiritual power. At that time, they didn't say anything, so they were very puzzled. Now they finally understood that Yang Chen had already completed his qi circulation and was practicing controlling the fire. Compared to Zhu Chintao's shock, the hearts of Xinde and the four servants were even more shocked. The big shots were high up and didn't know that there were so many twists and turns in Yang Chen's cultivation, but they knew. If the time Yang Chen used to practice calligraphy and lay the foundation was deducted, then from the beginning of Yang Chen's cultivation to the first layer of the qi refining stage, it only took a short half a year. Even in the whole of Chunyang Palace, as far as Shenda and the others knew, it was an unprecedented achievement. Just because of Shang Guanfeng's words, you fumbled and practiced to this point? Seeing that Yang Chen nodded his head and admitted it, Zhu Chintao's heart was now only left with shock and surprise. What was different from the shock of Shenda and the others was that he was shocked by Yang Chen's comprehension of cultivation. The achievements of a person's cultivation, in addition to his own innate root bone, which was the attribute of the spiritual root, depended on his own comprehension, hard work, and the degree of external help. Even if a person's spiritual root was full value, if he didn't have the comprehension, he couldn't even understand, let alone cultivate. Without the slightest external help, Yang Chen could practice controlling the fire to this point only by the guidance of Shang Guanfeng, the new disciple of Zhuji stage. If Zhu Chintao were to find a suitable word to describe it, perhaps he could only be described as a madman. Zhu Chintao suddenly had an impulse. Such a talented disciple, he must let the palace master know. In front of him, the outer mountain disciple who could speak with confidence and composure in the face of the pressure of a Jedon stage master, and did not panic when refining medicine, was definitely the most potential genius disciple recruited by Chunyang Palace in the past 100 years. If such a disciple was not carefully cultivated, it would definitely be the biggest loss of Chunyang Palace. How about this, Yang Chen? I don't treat you as an outer mountain disciple, and you don't treat me as a martial uncle. Let's put aside our identities and simply discuss the means of controlling the fire. What do you think? The more he looked at Yang Chen, the more Zhu Chintao liked him. He suddenly had the idea of accepting him as a disciple, but he knew that it was impossible now. It was still possible to simply give pointers, but he didn't want to see Yang Chen take a detour. As soon as Zhu Chintao said this, Shenda, Helian, Yuan Ting and Gu Kun were all shocked. Who was Zhu Chintao? For the four servants, he was simply a legendary existence. Even if he was an outer mountain disciple, he was a martial uncle who had to kowtow when he saw him. What was he saying? Put aside our identities? Discuss it? My God, a Jedon stage master and a disciple at the first level of Qi refining realm, discuss it equally? Did they hear it wrong, or was the world crazy? How dare I trouble martial uncle? Yang Chen didn't seem to understand the meaning of this at all. His mouth was polite, but he immediately said another sentence. There are some things I don't understand, and I hope martial uncle can give me some advice. Chapter 61. On one hand, he didn't regard himself as an outsider, and on the other hand, he seized the opportunity to ask for guidance. Yang Chen and Zhu Chintao immediately stared at each other like tortoises and mung beans. However, this scene was witnessed by Yang Chen's four servants. They didn't know how many times they smacked their jaws on the ground in secret. Martial granduncle, I have been pondering alone, and I don't have any special methods. Whatever I see, I just think of using flames to create it. In the face of Zhu Chintao, Yang Chen was really not polite at all. He straightforwardly raised the question, it's just that sometimes it's only possible to be similar in appearance but not in spirit. I don't know what the reason is. Master Uncle, please take a look. As he said that, two balls of flames appeared on Yang Chen's hands again. Then, the two balls of flames started a series of dazzling performances. Without a sound, the two balls of flames seemed to fuse together, turning into a fire stick that ran through both of Yang Chen's hands. It was long and round, but had the same thickness. The red flames surged within the stick, but none of them were able to escape the range of the stick. Immediately after, the flames turned into a square. The flames flowed smoothly on the surface. If one didn't pay attention, they might really think that it was a real thing and not an illusory flame. Then, the shape of the flames became more and more complicated. A treasured sword made of flames, a ghost head blade made of flames, even a table made of flames, a book, a jade slip, and even a burning candle. Shenda and the other three were stunned speechless, especially He Lian and Gu Kun. They looked at the burning candle. The candle below didn't move at all, as if it was a real thing. However, the flames on the wick were still swaying slightly. Coupled with the red color, it was very lifelike. This change wasn't over yet. In the blink of an eye, the flames started to transform into a tree. Apart from the color, the tree trunk and leaves looked as if they were carved out of red jade. It was so realistic that even the folds on the bark could be seen clearly. If one were to take a closer look, one would even notice that every leaf, including the veins, was clearly visible. Zhu Qiantao was worthy of being a Jedi stage master. His powerful spiritual awareness did not miss even the most subtle part of the flame in Yang Chen's hand. When he found that the leaves were so clear, he couldn't help but be shocked. How could such a method be considered as controlling fire? It was simply using fire to create a world. The flame on Yang Chen's hand was still changing. After maintaining the tree for a period of time, it suddenly dissipated and turned into a house in the blink of an eye. This house was exactly the same as the alchemy room that Yang Chen was currently in. Zhu Qiantao even used his divine sense to scan the place and found that even the bricks and tiles corresponded to each other. It was just that they were a lot smaller. The following changes made Zhu Qiantao even more dazzled. The house suddenly shrank, and then many things appeared around it. Yang Chen's small courtyard appeared between Yang Chen's hands, as if it had shrunk many times. After everyone saw everything clearly, the small courtyard shrank again. Then everyone saw a corner of the 9 Earth Mountain Villa, with dozens of small courtyards. With everyone's eyesight and divine sense, they could still see it clearly. After stabilizing for a period of time, the corner of the mountain villa shrank again, and then the entire miniature 9 Earth Mountain Villa appeared in front of everyone. The 9 Earth Mountain Villa was almost several dozen li in circumference, but at this moment it was completely displayed between Yang Chen's hands. What was miraculous was that if everyone used their divine sense to scan, they could find that every brick, every tile, every stone, and every tree of the 9 Earth Mountain Villa could be found in the small area between Yang Chen's hands. Seeing this, the Jedi stage master Zhu Qiantao plus Yang Chen's 4 servants Xinda, He Lian, Yuan Ting, and Gu Kun were completely stunned. What was this? This was a flame? Using flames to construct an illusory 9 Earth Mountain Villa, could there be a situation more unbelievable than this? There was no need to mention Xinda and the other 3. From the moment the increasingly complicated shapes formed by the flames had appeared, they had completely turned into idiots. Other than opening their mouths wide and maintaining a dumbstruck expression, they did not make any other movements. Even with Zhu Qiantao's boasting of his Jedi stage cultivation, having several hundred years of experience in the area of pill refinement and controlling fire, he still didn't dare pat his chest and boast that he could do what Yang Chen did. What was even more unbelievable was that all of this was done by a first-level qi condensation outer sect disciple. His cultivation was lower than any of the people present, including the servants, but he had done a miracle that no one could believe their eyes. Yes, apart from miracle, the 5 people couldn't think of any words to describe what they saw. If this kind of scene appeared on a Yuanying stage master, perhaps it wouldn't be strange, but it just had to appear on the hands of a first-level qi condensation outer sect disciple. After the 9 Earth Mountain Villas scene continued for a while, it suddenly dissipated. All of the scenery once again turned into 2 small and trembling flames, swaying on Yang Chen's hands and returning to its original appearance. Without Yang Chen saying much, everyone understood how Yang Chen did all of this. First he used the flames to simulate simple shapes, like a long square, then more complex shapes, then more and more complex, until finally he could evolve into the entire 9 Earth Mountain Villa. The shapes that Yang Chen displayed one by one were the trajectories that he practiced. There was simply no need to ask. Was there still any doubt about such a superb method? At least in the eyes of Xinda, He Lian, Yuan Ting, and Gu Kun, it was already a perfect performance. They couldn't see any problems at all. A Golden Core Grand Master was a Golden Core Grand Master after all. Zhu Qiantao seemed to think of something and began to slowly ponder with a frown. But how could he find an answer in such a short amount of time? Just recovering from the shock was already not bad. Martial uncle, you also saw that I can do this. Yang Chen's words sounded at the right time and gathered everyone's attention. Zhu Qiantao's spirit was even more shaken. Maybe what Yang Chen found difficult was something he hadn't thought of at the moment. Although my flames can simulate complex shapes, there is one thing I can't do. Yang Chen's question finally came out. I can only simulate things that can't move, but I can't create things that can move. Martial uncle, do you have any way to solve this? Once Yang Chen's question came out, Zhu Chintao suddenly froze. His ears seemed to be shaken by a great bell and his eyes immediately lit up. Then he sighed heavily. Yang Chen, compared to your imperial fire, I found that my hundreds of years of cultivation have all gone to waste. Chapter 62. The words of a Jedon stage master directly made Xinda He Lian, Yuan Ting, and Gu Kun fall into a complete sluggish state. If a Jedon stage master, moreover a fire attribute Jedon stage master, said that his hundreds of years of cultivation in controlling fire were all in vain, then what were they? Even worse than a dog? Hearing this, Yang Chen's face showed a trace of a bitter smile. He attracted Zhu Chintao's attention in order to hide himself under a layer of protection in Chunyang Palace, and also to make everyone pay more attention to him, but not to let Zhu Chintao evaluate him like this. Once this sentence was heard by people outside, it was unknown how much trouble it would cause. The cultivation world was not entirely composed of good people. It was unknown how many people were jealous of the virtuous and capable, including Chu Heng. He was in Chunyang Palace, but he was on good terms with the pro-disciple of the Taishanmen and even fawned on him. How good was his heart? Furthermore, it wasn't like everyone was so calm and peaceful among the sections. The cultivation resources in this world were not so abundant that all cultivators could squander. This also meant that there must be fights between sections. And once a talented disciple appeared in some sects, if they did not pay attention to protection, it was estimated that they would die suddenly for unknown reasons. Once Zhu Chintao's evaluation of him spread outside, Yang Chen estimated that even if he stayed in the 9 Earth Mountain Villa every day and did not go out, he might still be plotted against. After all, he was now only at the first level of qi refining. At best, he could only overturn mediocre people like Xinda or Sun Haijing, who were at the 4th level of qi refining. If a master appeared again, he would definitely not be able to bear the consequences. Even if he could kill the killer who blocked the way last time, it was because the other party underestimated him and did not expect that he would have that murderous move. If the other party really wanted to deal with Yang Chen with all his strength from the beginning, Yang Chen would have died long ago. No one spoke, and the scene was silent for a long time. Zhu Chintao seemed to recover from that kind of sigh. Seeing Yang Chen's face, he immediately realized what kind of trouble his words might bring. Without thinking about it, his face immediately sank. You didn't hear anything just now, you didn't see anything. You've been serving the 2 of us outside, right? As soon as these words came out, the 4 servants were all quick-witted people. After being servants for a few years, if they didn't even have this little insight, then they would have worked for nothing. They all swore loudly with their inner demons, and then they no longer dared to stay around the 2 and left. When only Yang Chen and Zhu Chintao were left, Zhu Chintao said excitedly, "So fire can also be played with like this, how did you think of it?" Of course, Yang Chen would not tell him that this was what he learned from the hands of countless important people in the heavenly court in the next 10,000 years, and also from a group of people like the Fire Lord and even the 28 constellations who specialized in playing with fire. He just smiled and said, "I also don't know how to cultivate. Chief Steward Shangguan said to train to control fire, so I used this method to train to control fire. I still don't know if it's right or not, but since Martial Granduncle said so, it seems like it's not wrong." Wrong? Zhu Chintao glared at Yang Chen and suddenly laughed. "I originally thought that I would only be able to fool around in the Aurus Core stage for the rest of my life, but after your demonstration, I saw the hope of nascent soul. I am not your martial granduncle, you are my martial granduncle." In a happy mood, Zhu Chintao's words were already very out of tune. The sudden surprise, even if he was a Jiedon Grandmaster, he could not help but be shocked by this discovery. It was not like the demeanor that a Grandmaster should have. When talking to Yang Chen, he also began to speak indiscriminately. Seeing that Yang Chen had been smiling bitterly, Zhu Chintao patted Yang Chen's shoulder very casually and comforted him. Don't worry, now only I and the palace master know about your matter, others don't know. Your chi-seeking pill will be the secret weapon of my Chunyang palace in the future. No matter how many you refine, the palace will collect how many. Don't worry, if you want crystal stones, we will give you crystal stones. If you want contribution, we will give you contribution. In addition, the question you said, how to make the fire simulate living things, I don't know how to answer you for a while. Zhu Qiantao did not proudly forget the question raised by Yang Chen. According to my experience, there are two possibilities. One is that your current spiritual power cultivation is not enough. The other is that your divine awareness is not enough. You practice like this first. After I go back and think about it for a while, I will tell you. Thank you, Grandmaster. Yang Chen nodded secretly in his heart. In fact, what Zhu Qiantao said was exactly his current problem. Zhu Qiantao was worthy of playing with fire for hundreds of years. Even with experience alone, he could see some things. Although it was not the most critical part, he believed that after Zhu Qiantao went back and studied it, he would also find out the mystery. Many things were like a layer of window paper. As long as it was pierced, there would be no secrets. However, Zhu Qiantao said that everything was confidential, which made him feel relieved. As long as he was not a genius in cultivation, and only had a reputation for alchemy, the treatment could be completely different. No one would like to offend an alchemist, even in the demonic path. For those who might save their lives and help them improve their cultivation in the future, most people in the cultivation world would still flatter them. Who knew if one day they would come to ask for help? What are you thanking me for? I should thank you. Zhu Qiantao waved his hand and did not put on his grandmaster's airs. After saying that, he frowned and said, however, how do I thank you? Well, how about this? I will accept you as my disciple and directly become my personal disciple. How about it? These words made Yang Chen stunned. He did not expect Zhu Qiantao to suddenly give him such a big gift. There were many benefits to becoming Zhu Qiantao's personal disciple. If it was given to anyone in the 9 Earth Mountain Villa, it would be a good thing to reach the sky in a single bound. However, the problem was that Yang Chen's first wish after his rebirth was to become a disciple of his beautiful master. Grandmaster, this is against the rules. You can't break the rules of Chunyang Palace just for me. Yang Chen hurriedly found an excuse. However, he immediately thought that this might just be a delay. Maybe it was a problem that he would still have to face after reaching the foundation establishment stage. He could only say very honestly, in addition, this disciple also wants to learn something other than alchemy in Chunyang Palace. This was a tactful refusal. With Zhu Qiantao's hundreds of years of experience, how could he not hear it? He did not force it. After all, a Jindan stage master could still be more open-minded. He chuckled and said, if that's the case, then I will owe you a favor. When you need it, you can come to me. In addition, as he spoke, Zhu Qiantao took out an alchemy furnace from his Qiankuan bag and put it in front of Yang Chen. Your alchemy furnace is too bad. This is for you. Chapter 63. This is something I bought from an auction by chance when I was traveling outside. Although it is a low-grade alchemy furnace, it can just bring your fire control method to the extreme. Zhu Qiantao was very satisfied to look at the alchemy furnace he took out and said, I already have a top-grade alchemy furnace, you can just use this to improve your alchemy technique. Thank you for the great gift of Master Uncle, it would be impolite for this disciple to refuse. Yang Chen saw this alchemy furnace at a glance. His face immediately showed a smile. He did not refuse, and directly thanked him. Zhu Qiantao saw that he accepted it easily, and he was also very happy. Compared with the direction he found for the Yuanying stage cultivation, a low-grade alchemy furnace that he could not use was a bit too insignificant. Fortunately, he also promised Yang Chen a favor, which made him feel better in his heart. The thing about the chi-seeking pill, must not let other people know, especially the refining method. Finally, Zhu Qiantao still told Yang Chen something before he left. He just saw Yang Chen's superb fire control method, and now he was anxious to go back to experiment and ponder. He could stay until now, it was already a lot of face. When Zhu Chintao had disappeared, Yang Chen's face showed a smile as if he had found a treasure. He carefully held the alchemy furnace left by Zhu Chintao in his hand and began to look up and down. The more he looked carefully, the more the smile on his face. He Lian quietly walked in and saw that Yang Chen was holding the alchemy furnace happily. She did not dare to disturb him and quietly retreated. The alchemy furnace left by a Jiedon stage master could definitely make a qi refining first layer fire cultivator very excited. Yang Chen's performance was reasonable. No one knew that Yang Chen was excited because he found a coveted alchemy furnace. The alchemy furnace in front of him, whether from the appearance or color, was very similar to an alchemy furnace he had heard of in his previous life. And that alchemy furnace was said to be found in the human world. The profound spirit furnace, in his previous life in the heavenly court, was also a great alchemy furnace. It could almost be said to be ranked in the top 10. Almost all the elixirs that Yang Chen had heard of, the profound spirit furnace could be refined. This point, it was estimated that apart from the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord's 8 trigrams furnace, it was absolutely unique. Even the famous alchemy furnaces that were ranked higher than the profound spirit furnace have their own restrictions. A few elixirs could not be refined. But the profound spirit furnace had no such restrictions at all. The reason for this was a characteristic of the profound spirit furnace. This profound spirit furnace was not a top alchemy furnace from the beginning, but a furnace embryo. After thousands of years of refining and looking for various kinds of fire seeds, it became a top alchemy furnace. To put it bluntly, this profound spirit furnace was an alchemy furnace that could be upgraded, but the things needed for the upgrade were more special. In addition to some special materials suitable for the alchemy furnace, the profound spirit furnace also needed to absorb various kinds of fire seeds to upgrade. Now in the hands of Yang Chen, it was likely that the furnace embryo had not yet been discovered by the alchemy master in his previous life. This profound spirit furnace was also refined by a master, but it was only half refined. Because there were no better materials in hand, even he himself did not know whether his idea was feasible or not, so after refining a furnace embryo, he gave up. But even so, the performance of this profound spirit furnace was also a low-grade alchemy furnace. Holding it in his hand, Yang Chen scanned it several times with spiritual awareness and input of spiritual power. It looked like the profound spirit furnace. Suddenly, Yang Chen couldn't believe that he would have such good luck and get such a legendary alchemy furnace. Thinking of this, Yang Chen's hands began to tremble a little, as if a huge pie fell from the sky and directly knocked him out. But Yang Chen also understood that this profound spirit furnace at the beginning, in the hands of anyone who did not know the goods, it was just a low-grade alchemy furnace. Who would be willing to use the top materials to throw into a low-grade alchemy furnace? Who would be willing to use precious fire seeds to throw into a low-grade alchemy furnace? Needless to say others, the Jiedon stage master Zhu Chintao, didn't he take the profound spirit furnace as a waste and directly threw it to Yang Chen? Anyway, whether it was or not, as long as Yang Chen had the opportunity to refine it with top materials, or what kind of precious fire seeds were collected, it would naturally be seen. Although he could not be 100% sure, Yang Chen had already had 80% confidence from the performance of this alchemy furnace. In any case, this was also a low-grade alchemy furnace. Compared with the unranked alchemy furnace in Yang Chen's hands, it was not known how many times it was stronger. Even if it was a low-grade alchemy furnace, it could be classified as a magic weapon. If Yang Chen only had the strength of the first layer of the qi refining stage, he could not even control the magic weapon, he could only use some rune weapons. However, thanks to Yang Chen's spiritual awareness that was already comparable to the middle stage of the foundation stage, at least Yang Chen was now able to completely collect the profound spirit furnace, mark it with his own spiritual awareness mark, and completely turn it into his own thing. He had already got the profound spirit furnace in his hands. If Yang Chen could still let it become someone else's thing, then he was really a fool. Therefore, without hesitation, Yang Chen began to collect the profound spirit furnace. The powerful spiritual awareness directly wrapped the profound spirit furnace and began to engrave his own spiritual awareness mark in the core of the alchemy furnace. Although Yang Chen's spiritual awareness was already strong enough, but in the case where his spiritual power was still very low, it still took Yang Chen a whole day to do these things. None of Xinda's 4 people dared to disturb him. They also knew that Yang Chen must be trying to refine the alchemy furnace. Although they knew that the hope was slim, none of them dared to say anything. They just had some doubts in their hearts. They were all depressed, waiting for Yang Chen to come out. After spending a day and a night, Yang Chen finally completed the collection of the profound spirit furnace. When the spiritual awareness completely engraved his own mark in the profound spirit furnace, Yang Chen could not even believe that he already had one of the top 10 alchemy furnaces of the future heavenly court. With a satisfied smile, Yang Chen happily walked out of the alchemy room. He couldn't help but be happy. Even when he was a great principal golden immortal in his previous life, there was no such level of magic weapon in his hands. At the door, Shenda, Helian, Yuan Ting and Gu Kun, 2 on each side, lined up neatly waiting for Yang Chen to come out. When they saw him coming out, they were all happy, and at the same time, they were also looking forward to it. Yang Chen did not talk nonsense. He knew what they wanted. He smiled and said directly, "The alchemy furnace is good. By the way, the few of you, no matter what attribute, you can practice the Imperial 5 Elements technique in my way. Moreover, it is very good for practicing spiritual awareness." Chapter 64. Shenda and the other 3 were overjoyed. They were waiting here to ask if other methods similar to Yang Chen could be used in addition to the fire cultivation. Although they all had a little idea in their hearts, they were still very happy to get a positive answer. Several people immediately determined their future direction of cultivation. After a simple rest, Yang Chen immediately called He Lian to the alchemy room. Now Yang Chen's cultivation base was still low. It was impossible for a person to control the fire and add medicine to the alchemy, so he could only ask He Lian to help. However, this also gave He Lian the opportunity to observe, which He Lian couldn't ask for. With the newly collected profound spirit furnace, Yang Chen had to use this pill furnace to refine a furnace of qi-seeking pills to try the pill furnace. Since it has been decided to use this profound spirit furnace for the rest of his life, Yang Chen certainly has to start taking good care of it. The best way to maintain the pill furnace, in addition to refining with better materials and looking for fire seeds to absorb, was to add more medicinal qi to the profound spirit furnace. How to increase the medicinal qi? A lot of alchemy was the answer. No matter what kind of medicinal pill it was always necessary to use a variety of medicinal materials. The more medicinal materials were refined, the more medicinal qi left by various medicinal materials would be, and the pill furnace could more and more balance the medicinal qi of various attributes, thus achieving the purpose of warming the pill furnace. Magic weapon? When He Lian saw Yang Chen take out the pill furnace, and then the original palm-sized pill furnace suddenly became a pill furnace with a height of half a person, she immediately recognized that this was a magic weapon, and her envious eyes did not hide it. Cultivate well, you will have a chance to have it in the future. Yang Chen smiled and said nothing more. He just motioned He Lian to start preparing medicinal materials. With such a big pill furnace, it could naturally refine more pills in one go. Yang Chen let He Lian choose 10 times the amount of medicine, and then held the ears of the pill furnace and began to control the flame. No way, the cultivation base was too low, and he couldn't directly use his spiritual awareness to control the flame and the pill furnace at the same time, he could only hold it with both hands. As soon as the flame appeared, Yang Chen felt the strength of the profound spirit furnace. Even if the profound spirit furnace was only a low-grade magic weapon now, it was still a magic weapon after all. Compared with Yang Chen's original worst alchemy furnace, it was simply heaven and earth. Whether it was the control of the flame or the amount of the flame, using the profound spirit furnace was several times better than the original alchemy furnace. Even Yang Chen had a feeling that this alchemy furnace and himself had a kind of flesh and blood connection, and it could know what he wanted to do. One by one, the herbs were added in, and in the blink of an eye, they were transformed into medicinal liquid. After that, the medicinal liquid began to condense along the spiral structure of the flame. Everything was the same as the original concoction process. The only difference was that the amount of medicinal liquid had increased by 10 times. However, Yang Chen did not seem to be straining at all. 2 hours later, a total of 1,000 qi-seeking pills were collected by Yang Chen using the pill-collecting technique. The whole process was very smooth. Yang Chen did not delay time. He didn't have a good way to get the sect contribution before. Now that Zhu Chintao had left a word, he could exchange it for crystal stones or contribution points. Yang Chen directly took the newly refined medicinal pill and went straight to the medicinal hall of the Nine Earth Villa, and then let all the medicinal hall disciples exchange it for the sect contribution points. Zhu Chintao was very generous, and it may also be related to the attention of the palace master. Originally 1 or 2 low-grade spirit stones could be exchanged for a contribution point. Now Zhu Chintao directly let Yang Chen exchange a qi-seeking pill for a contribution point. It must be known that the qi-seeking pill was refined with ordinary medicinal materials, and the cost was negligible. 1,000 contribution points, Yang Chen did not waste any of them. All of them were handed over to the Scriptures Pavilion in exchange for reading time in the Scriptures Pavilion. In the following days, apart from performing 1 cycle of cultivation at a fixed time every day, Yang Chen always stayed in the Scriptures Pavilion. In the previous life, Yang Chen's cultivation of fire attribute methods was already unparalleled in this world. However, Yang Chen did not have a deep understanding of the other attributes. He only had a general understanding during battle, and it had nothing to do with cultivation. Yang Chen could not master one method, and could only first look for help from the sect's ancient records. Although the Scriptures Pavilion of the Nine Earth Villa was only prepared for qi condensation disciples, it had a large number of ancient records. Just the various methods suitable for this period, there were no less than several hundred types. Adding on the experience and lessons of countless predecessors, just the ancient records on cultivation already numbered close to 10,000 jade slips. If one also counted the various classifications such as pill refining, tool refining, talisman techniques, formation knowledge, and so on, just the Scriptures Pavilion of the Nine Earth Villa of the Chunyang Palace had no less than 100,000 jade slips. Generally, after qi condensation disciples entered the Scriptures Pavilion, they would look for the things they needed according to the different categories. Usually, they would find a suitable method, then find the corresponding cultivation experience and lessons for this method, and then they would give up. To be like Yang Chen, carefully studying every single jade slip was simply unprecedented. Countless people looked at Yang Chen's stupidity and shook their heads in silence. Many people took joy in his misfortune, but not many people warned Yang Chen. They seemed to be waiting to see him make a fool of himself. Chu Heng naturally knew of Yang Chen's actions in the Scriptures Pavilion and almost instantly determined Yang Chen's goal. Yang Chen definitely did not want to ask this disciple about cultivation, so he wanted to go to the Scriptures Pavilion to find the answer. Chu Heng sneered in his heart. Without someone to teach him step by step, did he really think that cultivation was so simple? However, Yang Chen's behavior also made Chu Heng completely put down his guard. A disciple of the first level of qi condensation, staying in the Scriptures Pavilion every day instead of cultivating, how much future could he have? There was no need to suppress him at all. He read so many messy ancient books, naturally he would cripple himself. A first level of qi condensation wanted to specialize in many things. Who did Yang Chen think he was? A Jindan stage master? Yang Chen did not care about everyone's opinion. Every day, he eagerly looked at the ancient books of these predecessors. With his experience as a great principal golden immortal, he could naturally distinguish which was right and which was wrong. Soon, he had a more intuitive understanding of the other 5 elements. All day in the Scriptures Pavilion, the contribution to the sect was not enough. Yang Chen went to refine a furnace of qi-seeking pills, which was enough for him to stay in the Scriptures Pavilion for a few days. This kind of life lasted for half a year, and the jade slips in the Scriptures Pavilion, Yang Chen had also read most of them. Just as Yang Chen put a piece of jade slip on the original shelf and reached for the next piece of jade slip, a faint sigh suddenly came behind him. "Junior brother Yang, it's useless for you to look like this." Chapter 65. There were many disciples going in and out of the Sutras depository. There were hundreds of them every day. Many people sometimes wanted to see Yang Chen's obsessive look. They would often appear around Yang Chen. Yang Chen had also developed a habit. He did not guard against the people who came to him. Anyway, those who could enter the Sutras depository were all disciples and servants of Chunyang Palace. They were not allowed to use force here. He did not pay attention to others, and others would not look for him. Therefore, Yang Chen did not pay attention to who appeared around him. He just scanned the jade slips with his divine sense one by one. This sudden voice made Yang Chen's movement stagnate, as if it evoked a warm memory from the bottom of his heart. In his previous life, when Yang Chen was in Jurong Villa, there was such a voice that cared about him. However, after his rebirth, Yang Chen had poured all his thoughts on his master and forgot the initial warm feeling. Turning back, Yang Chen saw the owner of the voice. It was almost exactly the same as in Yang Chen's memory. The fitted dress, the carefully trimmed hem of the skirt, the eyes looking at him calmly, a peerless face, like a fairy in the myth, standing behind Yang Chen, like a dream. Senior Sister Gongsun. After Yang Chen called out, he suddenly did not know what to say, and was silent in the same place. Junior brother Yang, if you look at it like this, it will be impure, and it will easily interfere with your cultivation. Gong Sunling looked at the junior brother who had been hearing his name recently and kindly advised him. At this moment, Yang Chen's mind had run back to his previous life, recalling every bit of Gong Sunling. Every sect would have some talented disciples. There was no doubt that Gong Sunling was one of those talented disciples. However, the world of cultivation was very cruel. Under the fierce competition, many talented disciples would fall for various reasons. This was why Yang Chen did not want Zhu Chintao to publicize himself. In his previous life, Gong Sunling was one of the talented disciples who fell. However, she did not fall because of others, but because she failed to ascend and turned into ashes. In Yang Chen's memory, Gong Sunling's impression was far less clear than Xianxia and Sun Qingxue. This was also because she fell early in the mortal world. But in Yang Chen's previous cultivation, senior sister Gong Sunling still gave him a lot of advice. At that time, Yang Chen was just an ordinary disciple, and Gong Sunling was a pro-disciple. Even when Yang Chen was in danger again, Gong Sunling also saved Yang Chen once. Yang Chen's warm feeling in the sect, in addition to his master, at least half of it was because of Gong Sunling. Although the things of that year had not happened yet, since Yang Chen had seen Gong Sunling, he naturally could not let the tragedy of that year repeat itself. Gong Sunling had a good spirit root of the earth attribute. As for how good it was, Yang Chen did not know. But Yang Chen remembered that Gong Sunling became an outer sect disciple in a year, reached the foundation stage within 10 years, and then stepped into the ranks of the Jedon stage in less than 80 years. After that, she entered the Yuanying stage in more than 100 years, and entered the Deshang stage in only 500 years. Until the time of the Ascension Tribulation, Gong Sunling only spent less than 1,000 years. At that time, Yang Chen had just entered the middle Jedon stage. Even Yang Lan's framing of him had not happened yet. Now that he thought about it, Gong Sunling's aptitude was not inferior to Xianxia and Sun Qingxue. Even Yang Chen had begun to doubt whether Gong Sunling had a full spirit root of the earth attribute. Junior brother Yang. Junior brother Yang. Gong Sunling saw that Yang Chen just stared at her and didn't speak, and couldn't help but be a little angry. Many people were obsessed with her beauty. Gong Sunling was very clear, but she kindly reminded Yang Chen, but it attracted such a rude gaze, and she was really unhappy in her heart. But he always felt that since they were from the same sect, it was better to remind him, so he resisted his unhappiness and called Yang Chen twice. Sorry, senior sister Gongsun, I thought of something else and lost my mind. Yang Chen was called by Gong Sunling and woke up. With Yang Chen's temperament, it was not a memory that could make him moved, otherwise he would never fall into such a state of absent-mindedness. Perhaps, in the depths of Yang Chen's heart, there was also a place for Gong Sunling. Yang Chen replied respectfully, and he did not hide his absent-mindedness, which made Gong Sunling feel a little better, and her voice calmed down a lot. She pointed to Yang Chen and said, "Junior brother Yang, you have seen so much, it is not good for your cultivation. Thank you for your concern, senior sister. Yang Chen hurriedly thanked her. Anyone could distinguish between good and bad at this time. Gong Sunling didn't say much. When she saw Yang Chen thank her, she was not polite. She turned around and left, leaving only a sentence, "You are on your own." Looking at Gong Sunling's graceful departing figure, Yang Chen seemed to be infatuated and stayed in place for a long time without moving. In the following days, Yang Chen didn't restrain himself because of Gong Sunling's reminder. He still read all the jade slips one by one as he pleased. After spending another 2 months, he finally finished reading all the jade slips in the scripture pavilion. In his previous life, Yang Chen cultivated hard every day just to reach foundation establishment as soon as possible. When he entered the scripture pavilion, it was to find a fire attribute cultivation method. How could he be as leisurely as this life, reading all the jade slips in the scripture pavilion? 100,000 jade slips, reading an average of 500 per day, also took Yang Chen more than 200 days. During these days, Yang Chen also unknowingly gained the nickname of a bookworm. Almost all the people in the 9 Earth Mountain Villa also knew that there was a number 1 character like Yang Chen. In addition to the 3rd fire and 4th fire cultivation methods, the other 1st wood, 2nd wood, 5th earth, 6th earth, 7th metal, 8th metal, 9th metal, 9th water, and 10th water cultivation methods, Yang Chen had already changed all of them. They were replaced with 8 more effective cultivation methods. Previously, in order to collect the Yin-Yang 5 element secret art, there was no way to only collect the cultivation methods first. He didn't consider too much about the effects. Now he finally found a more suitable cultivation method. The effect was immediate. The Yin-Yang 5 element secret art was now running, and it felt a lot smoother than the previous cultivation methods. Of course, there was the reason for the cultivation method. Yang Chen's understanding of the other attribute cultivation methods had improved a lot. After reading so many jade slips, even if it was only the qi refining stage's perception of the 5 elements, it also benefited Yang Chen a lot. Combined with Yang Chen's understanding of the fire attribute, Yang Chen now had a lot more understanding of the 5 elements secret art. The rest was no longer something that could be obtained by reading books, he could only rely on his own perception. After all, what was recorded in the books was only the things of others. What Yang Chen had to do was to make others' things his own. The bookworm Yang Chen actually came out of the scripture pavilion and didn't go back in again. It immediately became big news and spread throughout the entire 9 Earth Mountain Villa. Chapter 66. Every day, those who looked at Yang Chen were a group of people who were watching a show, looking at a clown's performance with ridiculing gazes. Everywhere Yang Chen went, there were these kinds of gazes. Even if there were a few that didn't have this kind of ridiculing intent, they all carried some regret or confusion. In the entire 9 Earth Mountain Villa, no one knew what he was doing. Yang Chen didn't pay any attention to this. He only followed his usual habits. Apart from performing 1 cycle of cultivation each day, he sat in his small courtyard and carefully pondered and digested the things he had obtained from the enormous scripture pavilion's library. Perhaps it was because the knowledge of his previous life was too focused on fire cultivation, but when Yang Chen settled his heart and focused on all aspects, even if it was only the experience and knowledge of the qi condensation stage, it was still an eye-opener for Yang Chen. His understanding of the Yin-Yang 5 element arts went up another level. After Yang Chen pondered in this half-closed door cultivation for more than a month, he saw Sun Haijing as soon as he came out. Sun Haijing's face clearly had an expression of taking pleasure in Yang Chen's misfortune. He looked at Yang Chen as if he was looking at a dead person. "Junior brother Yang, congratulations." Sun Haijing looked at Yang Chen with a fake smile. Master said that since junior brother Yang has enjoyed the treatment of the 3rd level of qi condensation, according to the rules, junior brother Yang can go out and gain experience. Senior brother's son is considerate. Yang Chen didn't pay attention to Sun Haijing's words at all and only retorted, "I can go out and gain experience, it's not necessary." Senior brother's son is perhaps thinking too much? Sun Haijing sneered as if he had long known that Yang Chen would say this. After 2 sinister laughs, he said, "It seems that not going out is no good. Junior brother Yang, there is an order from above for junior brother Yang to immediately go out and gain experience." He, junior brother Yang, congratulations, a fierce tiger leaving the mountain, a dragon entering the sea, a grand plan. Yang Chen's brows furrowed. The upper echelons of Chunyang Palace wanted him to go out and gain experience? What was going on? Could this have been arranged by Chu Heng? After thinking about it, Yang Chen shook his head. Chu Heng is not bold enough to make such an arrangement. Moreover, it must be arranged by someone at least at the level of hall leader or palace lord in Chunyang Palace. What does it mean? Sun Haijing looked at the expression on Yang Chen's face, and his heart felt as comfortable as if he had eaten an iced watermelon in the hottest days of summer. Yang Chen really had no good way to deal with him in the 9 Earth Mountain Villa. However, as long as Yang Chen left Meiqing Mountain and left the sphere of influence of Chunyang Palace, then Yang Chen would not be able to be arrogant. After carefully appreciating it for a while, Sun Haijing left with a satisfied expression. Before leaving, he did not forget to ridicule Yang Kai, saying in a very regretful tone, "Junior brother Yang, I originally planned to wait until the day of the sects grand competition to issue a life or death challenge to you. Junior brother Yang is so powerful, surely he wouldn't be afraid of me being a few layers higher than him. It's a pity that the talisman weapons and talisman treasures that I've carefully prepared can't be used anymore." What a pity! Talisman weapons and talisman treasures? Yang Chen laughed coldly. Senior brother's son has probably forgotten how many sect contribution points I need to read in the scripture pavilion. If these sect contribution points were converted into Jingshi, how much would it be? Senior brother's son, if I come back alive, I will definitely challenge senior brother's son during the sect's grand competition. Sun Haijing's face clearly showed a wave of exasperation. Yang Chen reached out to his neck and lightly released a wave of killing intent. He said with a cold smile, "At that time, senior brother's son, wash your neck clean and wait. I will use countless talisman weapons and talisman treasures I've bought to smash you to death." This kind of person was constantly scheming against him in the sect. Yang Chen had already made up his mind to kill Sun Haijing. He definitely would not let Sun Haijing live. Stimulated by Yang Chen's killing intent, Sun Haijing shivered. His face instantly became pale and his body involuntarily retreated a few steps. He almost tripped over the doors of the courtyard behind him. His body staggered a few times before he managed to steady himself. At that moment, his ears were filled with the echoes of Yang Chen's voice filled with killing intent. It was as if his soul was trembling. Perhaps he felt that his performance just now was too embarrassing. After Sun Haijing steadied himself, he took a few deep breaths. His face finally regained some color, but he was still extremely afraid. He forcefully tried to put on a calm expression, but the muscles on his face involuntarily trembled, unable to be stabilized. In the end, he forcefully suppressed his fear. However, it had already been a long while. Yang Chen even no longer paid attention to him and had already stepped into his room. In the end, Sun Haijing seemed to want to redeem his face and shouted guiltily at Yang Chen, "Wait until you come back alive before we talk." After hastily escaping from Yang Chen's small courtyard and returning to his own room, Sun Haijing was still covered in cold sweat. His panicked mind was unable to calm down for a long time. His hands involuntarily trembled as he muttered, "Don't come back, don't come back." He was already terrified. Sun Haijing could get the news. Yang Chen could be sure that it must have been from Chu Heng. However, he didn't know what the sect meant by sending a disciple of the first level of qi condensation out to gain experience. However, Yang Chen wasn't in a hurry. He believed that someone would come to notify him very quickly. As expected, after half an hour, someone came to notify Yang Chen and brought him to the main hall of the 9 Earth Mountain Villa. Here, Yang Chen unexpectedly saw Du Qian, who hadn't appeared for a long time. In addition, Chu Heng was also present. What was even more surprising was that Gong Sunling was also present. "Yang Chen, if you want to succeed in your cultivation, you can't just shut yourself in. The one who spoke was Chu Heng. He had the appearance of a teacher who guided him patiently and patiently. It just so happens that the new period of experience has already begun. This time, you will also be included. This is something the sect has specially arranged for you, so you can't refuse. Yang Chen looked suspiciously at Du Qian. Du Qian naturally knew of Yang Chen's suspicions, but he smiled and nodded without saying anything. Du Qian presumably wouldn't harm him. Yang Chen believed that this definitely wasn't something Chu Heng could arrange. Yes. Yang Chen agreed and didn't say anything else. On the other hand, Gong Sunling looked curiously at Yang Chen the entire time. She seemed to be wondering why Yang Chen, a disciple of the first level of qi condensation, was being sent out to gain experience. However, even if she didn't understand, Yang Chen was even more confused. This arrangement was truly a bit unexpected. He really didn't know what the higher-ups were thinking. Go back and pack up. We'll leave right away. Chu Heng spoke again and reminded, Yang Chen, you're the disciple I think highly of. Don't make any mistakes on the road. His words were righteous, but Yang Chen clearly understood the meaning within. After you leave, be careful. Du Qian warned amiably from the side, then waved his hand. Go prepare, we'll leave after noon. You have to reach the floating mountain before the 20th of the 7th month. As he spoke, he handed over a talisman. If there's any danger on the road, activate this talisman. Your senior sister Gongsun will arrive in time to save you. Chapter 67. Originally, Yang Chen had some doubts about the higher-ups wanting him to go out and gain experience, but after hearing about floating in the sky, he immediately dispelled those doubts. So they wanted him to participate in the Floating Mountain Heavenly Stairway Assembly for new disciples. No wonder they wanted him to go out. After thinking about it carefully, Yang Chen immediately thought of the reason. Maybe it was because he accidentally said that he wasn't afraid of illusions when he killed that assassin last time. This made the higher-ups want to gain back some face for Chunyang Palace. This wasn't a big deal, but it gave Yang Chen a great opportunity. He originally thought he would have to stay in 9 Earth Mountain Villa for at least 3 years before leaving. He didn't think it would be so easy. After casually tidying up his luggage, Yang Chen went to the main hall of the mountain villa and said goodbye to Chu Heng and Du Qian. He directly set foot on his first trip out to gain experience after joining Chunyang Palace's outer sect disciples. Gong Sunling was no longer there. She had probably left a long time ago. Yang Chen was a bit glad that Du Qian and the others didn't want him and Gong Sunling to go together. Otherwise, there would be a lot of trouble. Shenda, He Lian, Yuan Ting, and Gu Kun, the 4 servants, weren't allowed to leave. They had the status of servants. Before reaching the 6th level of qi refining, they couldn't have the opportunity to go out and gain experience. Being alone and free, the moment Yang Chen stepped out of 9 Earth Mountain Villa, he suddenly felt like a fish in the sea and a bird in the sky. Because of the importance of the higher-ups, Yang Chen would always refine a cauldron of qi-seeking pills and give them to the medicinal hall every 5 or 6 days. Previously, he used to exchange them for sect contribution points. Later on, he changed them all into low-grade crystal stones. Now, Yang Chen had at least 200 to 300 kilograms of low-grade crystal stones. Yang Chen's first stop after leaving 9 Earth Mountain Villa was the market square at the foot of Meiqing Mountain. Since he was going out, Yang Chen naturally had to prepare a few things to use on the road. Moreover, a vile person like Sun Haijing definitely wouldn't give up this opportunity to kill him for no reason. He would definitely set up a killing trap outside. Yang Chen also needed to buy enough things in the market square to defend himself. Although Yang Chen wouldn't be afraid no matter how many people of Sun Haijing's level came, Yang Chen was still only at the first layer of qi refining. If a few more high-level enemies came, Yang Chen would still have to suffer a grievance. Yang Chen now had plenty of spar in his hands. As long as he took a fancy to something in the market square, he would haggle a little and then buy it. He was very generous. He stayed in the market for 3 consecutive days until Yang Chen could no longer feel the spiritual awareness that was secretly peeping at him. Then he left the market and flew in the other direction of Meiqing Mountain. Under Yang Chen's body was a paper crane. This was a talisman weapon. Jihe's entire body was made up of talismans and had been strengthened by a foundation establishment expert. As long as the user continued to inject spiritual energy into the paper crane, they would be able to make it fly. Although the speed was not very fast, it was much faster than walking. This paper crane was very valuable. It was worth at least more than 200 low-grade spar in the market square. Yang Chen bought it with a pile of talismans and talisman treasures. The seller gave him a 20% discount, which was very cost-effective. Yang Chen's flight route had been along the foot of Meiqing Mountain, which was also in the direction of human habitation. There was no place that would arouse the slightest suspicion. After flying like this for 2 days, he was about to get out of the sphere of influence of Meiqing Mountain. Yang Chen then put away the paper crane, went into the forest, and disappeared without a trace. Shortly after Yang Chen's figure disappeared, 4 or 5 sneaky guys emerged from the place where he put away the paper crane. After looking around, they had to admit that they had lost Yang Chen. What a cunning boy! We carefully planned to take action after getting out of the sphere of influence of Chunyang Palace. I didn't expect this guy to be so careful and put away the paper crane. A middle-aged, long-bearded scholar looked around, turned his head and said, "Didn't you say that you could find the whereabouts of the paper crane? Where is he?" I specially put a tracking formation on the paper crane. Even if he put it in the Qianquan bag, I can find it. A black-clothed and vulture-like guy behind him said in a cold voice, "I lost more than 50 spar, so he bought it cheaply. Don't worry, he can't run away." With that, the black-clothed man reached out and took out a formation plate and began to launch the formation on it. On that compass-like formation plate, the needle in the center spun wildly, but it didn't stop. "What's the matter?" The long-bearded scholar also saw the abnormality of the formation plate and asked hurriedly, "How is it possible?" The black-clothed man was also shocked. There could only be 2 situations in this situation. One was that Yang Chen was there, and the other was that he had completely lost track of his whereabouts. But obviously, no matter which situation it was impossible. It was impossible for Yang Chen to hide in front of 5 casual cultivators at the 7th level of Lianqi realm without being detected by them. Several people had already scanned this place with their divine sense several times, and it was impossible for there to be a shadow. Unless Yang Chen had made a prompt decision to completely crush the paper crane, even if it was broken, the black-clothed man's tracking formation could still find him. But the situation at present made several people begin to be suspicious. The long-bearded scholar, who was the leader, looked around and decisively ordered, "Everyone disperse. He is just a disciple at the 1st level of Lianqi realm, and he has no ability to fly. Everyone disperse for 100 miles, and then slowly search and meet up. I don't believe that he can escape 100 miles in a short time." The other 4 people agreed and quickly dispersed. This time, several people took over this business. If it was successful, at least each of them could get a low-grade magic weapon. This was a good opportunity that could only be encountered by chance. No one wanted to let it go, so everyone worked hard. If it weren't for the fact that they didn't dare to act rashly within the sphere of influence of Chunyang Palace, they would have already made Yang Chen suffer. The long-bearded scholar's cultivation was the highest, and he was also the leader of several people. He opened his divine sense and scanned around crazily. After finding nothing, he began to search around carefully in doubt. Yang Chen didn't go far, but he was now in a formation. The paper crane had already been sent into the merit ring by him. It was simply impossible for the other party to find the whereabouts of the paper crane through the merit ring. Seeing those people disperse, Yang Chen sneered and ignored them. He turned around directly. After calculating with his fingers, he chose a direction and began to walk in a strange pace. After a while, he completely disappeared in the formation. Yang Chen, who was in the middle of the formation, almost took a few steps and calculated a few times. After spending almost an hour, Yang Chen stood on a huge open space. On one side of the open space was a high cliff. Under the cliff, there was a conspicuous hole. It was dark, and no one knew what was inside. Chapter 68. Fortunately, it's still here. Yangchen looked at the dark entrance of the cave, and his face finally showed a smile. This cave, or to be exact, this immortal's cave was left by an ancestor of Chunyang Palace. In theory, this immortal's cave should be discovered after 60 years, including the huge illusion outside. This was the outermost foot of Meiqing Mountain. Everyone thought that this was a place with a lack of spiritual power, but they did not know how the predecessor found an underground spiritual vein here. He built such a simple immortal's cave to break through the Jedon stage and condense the Yuanying stage, but he failed miserably. The immortal's cave had been blocked by a large formation, and there was no leakage of spiritual power, and no one found it in this remote place. In later generations, it should be a disciple of Chunyang Palace who fell into the illusion after being seriously injured. He happened to be proficient in formations. Relying on the experience of his master, he walked into the center of the illusion and found this immortal's cave. However, in this life, Yangchen was lucky. The spiritual power was blocked by the large formation and could not be leaked. Yangchen felt the majestic spiritual power as soon as he came in. This huge spiritual power also provided endless spiritual power to the illusion, causing the illusion to become stronger and stronger without being noticed. From the merit ring, Yangchen took out the bottle that controlled the medicine garden of Xianxia Mountain. The blue water stain at the bottom of the bottle was now only a line, and it looked like it would dry up soon. When it came into contact with this rich spiritual power, the bottle shone brightly and produced a suction force out of thin air, gathering the surrounding spiritual power crazily. The blue water stain at the bottom of the bottle, Yangchen knew that it was the spiritual power absorbed and stored by the bottle, which was used to maintain the spiritual power of the medicine garden. Although it was very important for the growth of medicinal materials to have sufficient spiritual power, it could not be too abundant, or it would be directly drowned by spiritual power. The bottle had such a magical function, absorbing and storing the surrounding spiritual power, and then slowly releasing it to the medicine garden. Originally, the spiritual power at the bottom of the bottle was estimated to be able to support the needs of the medicine garden for a few years. Yangchen originally planned to add spiritual power to the bottle when he came out to practice a few years later. Now he had this opportunity. He could not only avoid the search of several killers outside, but he could also collect the relics of the predecessor in the cave house, and he could also supplement the spiritual power of the bottle, killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Yangchen didn't need to collect the spiritual power himself, he just needed to put the purified bottle outside. Yangchen tied the purified bottle to his waist and strode into the hole. The cave was not deep. After the senior found the underground spiritual vein, he did not put in any effort to decorate it. After hastily setting up an illusory formation to deceive people, he directly went into closed-door cultivation. Therefore, when Yangchen came in, what he saw was a simple cave. At the top of the cave, there was a luminous pearl that flickered with a faint yellow light. With this light, Yangchen could clearly see everything in the cave. After entering a few feet from the entrance of the cave, there was an enlarged cave, about a few feet in radius. On the ground in the center, there was a black futon. On the futon, a middle-aged man dressed in the costume of Chunyang Palace was sitting. His eyes were closed and he was motionless. There was no trace of vitality around, and he had been dead for many years. Disciple Yangchen of the younger generation greets the senior. Yangchen didn't dare to neglect and bowed to the corpse on the futon. This was the predecessor of Chunyang Palace. In any case, Yangchen was also a junior, so it was necessary to salute. After bowing and getting up, Yangchen took a few steps forward and used the earth's spiritual power to dig a square pit in the center of the cave. Later, he took out a few giant woods from the Qianquan bag, which were all things that had been prepared in the marketplace. The wood's spiritual power was condensed like a knife, cutting the giant wood, and soon a solid coffin was made. After doing all this, Yangchen carefully moved the corpse of the predecessor from the futon and put it into the coffin. After carefully taking the Qianquan bag from the waist of the predecessor's corpse, he closed the coffin lid. After bowing a few more times, the coffin was sent into the newly dug pit to be buried. In the center of the cave, Yang Chen piled up a grave and took out a piece of top-grade celestial bluestone from the Qianquan bag. He moved his fingers like a knife and engraved the name of the predecessor according to his memory. The signature was that disciple. Yang Chen bowed and stood in front of the grave. After doing all this, he bowed a few more times, and then began to check carefully. In fact, the things in the cave were clear at a glance. The black futon in the center, a sheathed long sword hanging in the deepest part of the cave, and a wooden table on both sides. In addition, there was nothing else. However, Yang Chen knew that what he saw in front of him, except for the two wooden tables, everything else he saw was not simple. The black futon itself was a whole piece of black jade, carved into the shape of a futon. The location where it was placed was just the exit of the underground spiritual vein. The black jade was warm all year round. Not only could it condense spiritual power, but it could also prevent the damage to the meridians caused by the spiritual power being too strong. When meditating, it could also play a role in stabilizing the mind. It was a cultivation treasure that cultivators below the Yuanying stage dreamed of. Now, the black jade praying mat had fulfilled Yang Chen's wish. For the relics of the predecessor, Yang Chen did not feel guilty for taking it. Immortal cultivators pay attention to fate. Since Yang Chen came in, that thing was left for Yang Chen. When the black jade futon was taken away, a spiritual power that was much richer than the spiritual energy in the air surged out. It was originally suppressed by the black jade futon, but now it gushed out directly. However, Yang Chen was not in a hurry. He directly put the bottle at the exit of the spiritual vein, and the spiritual power that gushed out was directly absorbed by the bottle. Then, Yang Chen took a few steps forward and came to the sheathed long sword hanging on the wall. However, Yang Chen just looked at it and did not take it off. In his mind, he recalled the memory of this sword, and he seemed to be a little embarrassed. This sheathed long sword, in fact, was not a sword, but a sword case, a good thing that could be used as a flying sword, and at the same time, it could be used as an artifact to hold a flying sword. However, for Yang Chen, there was no specific method to collect it. If he forcibly collected this sword case by relying on his cultivation base, it would definitely be a situation of 9 deaths and 1 life. In his previous life, the Chunyang Palace even paid the price of a Jedon stage master for this. After a while, Yang Chen let out a long sigh and had to temporarily give up the plan to collect the sword. Although the thing was good, his own life was more important. He had already obtained the black jade futon, and he should be satisfied. Moreover, even according to the development of his previous life, there were still decades of peace here, and it would not be too late to collect it later. After putting down this greed, Yang Chen simply sat on the black jade futon, opened the Qianquan bag left by the predecessor, and began to slowly sort out the things inside. Chapter 69. The predecessor in Chunyang Palace was originally a Jedon stage master. He had reached the peak of Jedon stage, but he had been unable to break through to the Yuanying stage. In the end, his lifespan was exhausted, and he had to stay in this underground spiritual vein. There was almost no elixir in the Qianquan bag. This was understandable. Since it was a life and death retreat, of course, it was necessary to use all the things that could strengthen the cultivation or help to improve the realm. It was normal to use up all the elixirs. The predecessor was a sword cultivator. All his cultivation was in that sword case, which was the sheathed long sword hanging on the wall outside. In the Qianquan bag, there were a lot of refining materials such as cold iron and gold. Unfortunately, looking at these good things, Yang Chen could only look at them and sigh. With his current realm, he could not use them at all. What interested Yang Chen were a few pieces of jade slips in the Qianquan bag. He picked them up and began to check them one by one. Yang Chen did not consider the sword technique for the time being. No matter how powerful the sword technique was, it was estimated that it was unlikely to be as powerful as the ones passed down by those guys in the heavenly court. Yang Chen only scanned this piece with his divine sense once and remembered it in his heart. He let it go for the time being and picked up another piece. Refining, to be exact, refining the sword. Almost all of these in the Chengquan bag were prepared for the next step of refining the sword case. After Yang Chen read it, he did the same thing. The consecutive pieces of jade slips were all related to cultivation. One of them was even the personal experience of the predecessor from the beginning of cultivation to entering the Jiedan stage, which was very rare. In this piece, Yang Chen also looked at it the most carefully. He almost used all the experience of the predecessor before letting it go. The last piece of jade slip gave Yang Chen a surprise. That was the most important part of his cultivation method, the method to cultivate and collect the sword case. After reading it carefully word by word, Yang Chen's face finally showed a smile. Before, he was still worried that he could not collect the sword case for the time being, but now there was no such problem at all. The spiritual energy in the underground spiritual vein was sufficient. The purified bottle had now absorbed a lot, and the trace of aqua blue color had become a lot stronger, but it was still far from absorbing all the underground spiritual veins. He could use this time to practice the method of collecting the sword case. Collecting the scabbard required a huge amount of spiritual energy. If it was Yang Chen's Qi training layer 1, it would be impossible. However, now that he had this collection method, it wouldn't be much of a problem. Just in case, Yang Chen still took out the profound spirit furnace and began to refine a simple Qi replenishing pill. This kind of pill was very easy to make. As long as one had the strength of a second-layer Qi practitioner, they could make it. Yang Chen now has the profound spirit furnace, plus his superb fire control ability. It is not a problem at all. Previously, Yang Chen would eat 1,000-year-old mysterious yang fruit every day, and the remaining peel would be stored in his merit ring. This could be used to refine the Qi-nourishing pill. The medicinal power of the mysterious yang fruit was too strong. Although the effect of supplementing spiritual energy was excellent, Yang Chen needed to use the positive and negative yin-yang 5 elements secret art to adjust and suppress it. It was not as smooth and direct as the Qi-nourishing pill. Yang Chen was slowly preparing for the alchemy here, and the 5 guys who were searching for Yang Chen outside were anxious like ants on a hot pot. The long-bearded scholar could conclude that Yang Chen did not leave this area. He had arranged companions to monitor the road ahead, and he did not find Yang Chen's figure at all. That Yang Chen could only hide in this area. If we let Chunyang Palace find out that we are chasing their palace disciples on the edge of Meiqing Mountain, none of us can escape. The long-bearded scholar was anxious, but there was no tension on his face. He just communicated with a few people with his spiritual awareness and passed these words out. In fact, there was no need for him to specifically emphasize it. Several people also knew the seriousness of the matter. Everyone was looking in all directions and listening in all directions, for fear of missing any place. But Yang Chen was like a clay ox entering the sea, disappearing without a trace under everyone's eyes. The guy who claimed to be able to track Shihe was even complained a lot about this. During the alchemy, Yang Chen sat directly on the black jade futon, and the jade futon was placed on the exit of the spiritual vein, just pressing the pure bottle. Although a part of the spiritual power had been extracted by the pure bottle first, the rest for Yang Chen was just enough for him to replenish. This underground spiritual vein could support a Jiedan stage master to die, and naturally, it could provide all the spiritual power that Yang Chen needed to collect the sword case. Alchemy was just in case. After all, Yang Chen's current realm was very low. Even if he could improve his spiritual power level through the mutual generation of the 5 elements, compared with a Jiedan stage master, it was simply the difference between a drop of water and the sea. Under the flame of Yang Chen, the skin of the 1,000-year-old profound yang fruit slowly melted and turned into a medicinal liquid. Qi-nourishing pill was different from Qi-seeking pill. Qi-seeking pill relied on Yang Chen to simulate the sense of Qi with his own flame. Qi-nourishing pill only needed to purify the spiritual power in the medicinal materials into pills, and it could be done with one hand. With a profound yang fruit every day, Yang Chen saved a lot of profound yang fruit skin. A piece of skin could refine at least 10 Qi-nourishing pills. Even if Yang Chen could refine 200 Qi-nourishing pills in one furnace, it still took Yang Chen 2 days and 2 nights to turn all these skins into Qi-nourishing pills. When all the profound yang fruit skin was used up, Yang Chen had more than 2,000 qi-nourishing pills in his hands. This number, coupled with the support of the underground spiritual vein, could definitely allow Yang Chen to collect the sword sheath. However, when Yang Chen put away the profound spirit furnace, he was still surprised to find that it seemed that the profound spirit furnace seemed to have a little change, and it became more full of medicinal qi. It seemed that often refining some medicinal pills with a lot of spiritual energy was also a small tempering for the profound spirit furnace. The more medicinal pills refined by the alchemy furnace, the better the effect. In his previous life, this sword sheath belonged to the Bright Moon Palace master of Chunyang Palace. After the sword sheath was refined by several Yuanying stage masters of Chunyang Palace, he made a big name for himself. Unfortunately, he finally betrayed Yang Chen's master. In this life, it was impossible for Yang Chen to leave the sword sheath to him and help the tyrant. After practicing the technique hundreds of times to ensure that he would not make mistakes when collecting it, Yang Chen began to make the final preparations. The speed of collecting spiritual power in the bottle could be controlled by Yang Chen and slowed down a little, so that Yang Chen's spiritual power replenishment through the black jade futon was twice as fast. All the qi-nourishing pills were placed in a Qiankuan bag on his hand. There was nothing else in this Qiankuan bag except for the qi-nourishing pills. After making all the preparations and adjusting his state to the best, Yang Chen finally sat on the black jade futon and began to practice. Welcome to Legends of Cultivation, audiobooks, where we bring ancient fantasy to life through storytelling. Follow the rise of heroes who defy fate, unlock mystical powers, and battle across celestial realms. Our audiobooks are crafted for fans of Chinese cultivation novels, filled with battles, breakthroughs, and legendary artifacts. Subscribe and be part of an unforgettable journey into the realm of immortality.